Well, people, this is Margaret Kwisiguma reaching you all the way from Benin City, Nigeria. Woo, I'm your host on the program, Breaking the Art. It's an interactive, informative, and exciting program where we're going to be talking with real people, real issues, discussing and profiling real solutions to life's issue, where we're going to be talking with a lot of wonderful personalities from every sphere of life on the show Breaking the Odds. I just want you to make a time with us. Keep the date. It comes your way from Eagles TV here in Benin City, Nigeria, every Sunday by 6 p.m. Of course, you can reach us on any of our social media platform if you want to be part of the show, and of course you also want to make your comments. Well, the program also is open for sponsorship and partnership. Wherever you're going to be watching the program from across the world, we are saying here on Eagles TV, live with Margaret Kwisiguma, reaching on Breaking the Odds, that this program is in their need of sponsor. Come be part of us, be our partner, be our sponsor, advertise a lovely program on the show Breaking the Odds. Don't forget, I did say that the program is focusing on real people, real issues, discussing real solutions. With real me, Margaret Kwisiguma, your host on the show. And of course, I'm also going to be having a wonderful team, Ade and Osara and the Eagles TV crew. So don't miss out on this every Sunday, reaching you live from Nigeria. Keep the date, it's by 6 p.m. Love you so much, and I look forward to hooking up with you. Have a great day. Welcome to one of life's most impactful, interactive, informative, and exciting show, Breaking the Odds. Our focus is on life, personalities, and society, dealing with real issues, real people, and discussing real solutions. I'm your host on the show, Margaret Kwisiguma, reaching you from Benin City, Nigeria. And guess what? On the show today, we are going to be looking at a very disturbing phenomenon. Oh yeah, you must say, what is it? Well, the phenomenon that I'm talking about has become really, really disturbing to the extent that we could no longer hold it, but to say, let's talk about it. Well, it's not living with us. It's now a reality. Gone were the days when we heard such things in the Western community. But today, right here in our society, in Nigeria, we are face to face with reality. And the reality is suicide. Does that sound strange to you? Of course. Suicide is now a phenomenon that is living right before our very eyes. Have you ever thought about suicide? Have you ever attempted to commit suicide? Or do you know someone, a family member, a relation, a friend, a distant personality who probably has attempted suicide, considering suicide, or is about to? And if you're just joining us on the program Breaking the Odds, are you considering suicide? Well, perhaps the thought still remains, or the discussion is about to unravel. However, on the show today, Breaking the Odds, I'm not alone. I have wonderful personalities who are going to be doing justice to this matter. On the show today, I'm going to be discussing with a member of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives. A nurse, she's also a midwife. And of course, she's no other than Reverend Mrs. Mercy Imokwede. She's also a counselor psychologist, a health educator, and a member of CASON, and also a member of Apricon. She's going to be coming on the show in a moment from now. And also, I'm going to be discussing with another wonderful personality, a production engineer, Evangelist David Elekwanya, who is also going to be doing justice to this issue on suicide. If you're just joining us, I want you to grab the seat next by your TV set, or grab that beautiful bottle before you, a cold drink. You can grab popcorn, and let's actually do it the way we know how to do it. However, don't go away. We'll be right back after the break. All right, the show is Breaking the Odds. It's your show, it's my show, it's our show, reaching you all the way from Benin City here in Nigeria. Well, thank you so much for joining us on board. I'm your host, Margaret Kwistiguma. Okay, like I did introduce earlier, that I have wonderful personalities who are going to be doing justice on the topic, suicide. Now, what's your view on suicide? Our numbers are going to be running on the screen. You're going to see our various social media platforms. We also want you to feed in your information on how much you know about suicide, or let us know someone perhaps who you know is about to commit suicide, or who has suicide in their history. On my far right, I have no other person. I call her a big fish. She's a psychologist. She's also a counselor. She's a midwife, and she is a nurse. She's a member of CASON and a member of Apricon. She's no other than Reverend Mrs. Mercy Imokwede from Benin City, Nigeria. It's good to have you, Ma. You look gorgeous and beautiful. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
It's nice to meet you. And thank you so much for honoring our invitation. And also, I did introduce earlier that we have Evangelist Dave Elekonya. I said he's a production engineer also from Benin City in Nigeria. Evangelist Dave, you're welcome to Breaking the Odds.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's keep the ball rolling. I have my guys behind the camera, and of course, too, Osaro, who is going to be on the street when we go on break. So thank you once more for joining us. All right, let me start with our midwife, our nurse, our psychologist, and of course, our counselor, Reverend Mrs. Mercy Imokwede. Reverend Mrs. Mercy Imokwede, what is suicide? When we look at our world, particularly in Nigeria, suicide has come to stay with us. I don't know if it would be right to say it has come to stay with us. However, it's now a reality. I mean, we see it happen by the day. Now, what is suicide?
Suicide, simply put, is an intentional taking of one's life.
Okay.
And you have different factors that are responsible for suicide. But before I talk about the different factors, I want to give you some statistics.
So sorry, you said suicide is a deliberate attempt to take one's life. Okay.
But you have, before suicide occurs, the thought comes in. The thought must be there. One cannot commit suicide without thinking about it. When the thought comes in, the person will go ahead to attempt to commit suicide. Then committing the suicide is the intentional taking of life, of one's life.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to come back to you, Ma, because you're going to be looking at some of the factors responsible for the intention of suicide. Okay, now to you, Evangelist Dave, what do you actually think? What's the definition about life? Because what Reverend Mrs. Mokweden just said, that suicide is an intentional, a deliberate attempt to take one's life. Now, what is the definition of life?
Well, my own definition of life is, I see life as a gift, a free gift from God to an individual to exist on the surface of the earth.
So in other words, the life doesn't belong to the individual who is attempting to commit suicide?
No.
Okay.
It's been given by somebody, by God Almighty, for us to exist on earth. And at the end, who will give account of Him, how we lived the life. So the life does not belong to us.
And so you don't have a right to take the life, which doesn't belong to you. Yeah. Okay, now let me go back to Reverend Mrs. Imokwede. Reverend Mrs. Imokwede, you haven't given an explanation or given a background of what suicide is all about. Can you tell us some of the factors responsible for suicide?
There are so many factors responsible for suicide. You have depression, which could be hereditary, which could come as a result of loss.
So that's under health factors now.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, there are other factors also, like, you know, a loss of a loved one.
Okay.
A loss of a job. Somebody can commit suicide as a result of feeling hopeless. A person can commit suicide as a result of anger, having been offended by somebody. We decide, and the person, the response of that person is not really, irritating.
Okay.
Like somebody with a low self-esteem or self-efficacy
Okay.
can also, commit suicide. Somebody who, for instance, the person has lost like I said before, somebody very dear.
Yeah.
If that person is not monitored or counseled immediately.
A loved one.
Yes. You find that such a person can commit suicide.
Perhaps a wife losing of a spouse,
yes,
one of the spouses.
Losing of a spouse.
Or child.
Losing of an only child.
Yeah.
Or, losing, somebody who is a breadwinner in a family.
Okay.
Can trigger suicide attempts.
Then also also heard too that there could also be historical factor, probably runs in the family.
Hereditary factor.
Okay.
Somebody who has had suicide before in the family, there is a tendency that, the relations will also have suicide.
You don't mean it.
Yes, because like depression is hereditary.
Okay.
And when somebody is thinking about suicidal tendency, it is good for one to find out the history, whether somebody else has committed suicide in the family.
Okay.
It's good to find out.
All right.
If somebody commits suicide, it's not only, it affects those in the community.
You're right.
It affects the family. And sometimes they will say, is it me that caused this? They start having guilt. They start having fear. They start becoming angry. And all those factors lead to one committing suicide.
Okay, now to Pastor Dave, what are some other factors that could be responsible?
Well, as a preacher and as a...
Because you probably have dealt with
Yes.
some cases, particularly in your process of counseling, or people coming to confide in you.
Yes, that's true. What I would say to this is, well, those in the health section believe depression,
Yeah.
but I see it as...
Do you have any spiritual connotation to that?
Yes. There are some spiritual connotation. There are some spiritual connection to
really?
this.
So it's not just, so some of these causes are not just natural.
Yeah, every physical operation is already concluded in the spirit. That's why it comes out physically.
Okay.
For a man to be depressed and not being able to control it is a spiritual activity within. It's as a result of...
Well, medically, I don't think the medical, we have a matron here, I don't know if you would allude to that.
The thing is that there are theories of suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts, and the actual suicide.
Yeah.
People have gone into research and have discovered that most of these factors that are listed are responsible for suicide.
Okay, from what he said, some are not natural. There could be some spiritual connotations to that. Okay, let's come back to you.
That's
explain further.
Demonic persuasion to commit suicide. We know that suicide is as a result of depression.
Okay.
But
one of the factors.
Yes, one of the major factors.
Okay.
But what brings about those factors? That act of depression, not being able to control it, it comes. I was a victim of depression.
Oh, really?
I once thought of suicide, committing suicide.
Wow. So you're the best person to be on the show.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I was able to control it as a result of my foundation and knowing fully well that I know the end of a man committing suicide.
What could have led to you considering suicide?
Situations, challenging situations, that was what happened to me, but that's not in all cases.
Okay.
In some cases, it's as a result of maybe committing a crime and not wanting to own up with it, not wanting to face challenges. Like in the Bible, it happened in the time of Judas Iscariot, Ahithophel, a prophet.
So your inability to stand the shame, the embarrassment.
The shock.
Okay.
You just decided to take your life so that that phase of life will go, not knowing what is yet to come in eternity.
All right. Okay, now I don't want to go in too religious about that. Now, Ma, sorry, let me come back to you. Now, he just mentioned some as a result of shame, embarrassment. And we heard a couple of months ago, we had a case of a 16-year-old girl who committed suicide simply because she, I think, a weave-on at the person whom she was working with was stolen at the shop. And she felt she didn't want the accusation on her claiming to be innocent. As a result of that, she took sniper. And that was it. Now, do you think that taking that act that reason was enough for that little girl to have done what she did?
Well, it's not enough reason for committing suicide. But you know, the background of people differs. People from dysfunctional homes can easily fall prey of suicide. People who have hereditary tendencies can easily fall prey of suicide.
Okay.
Those who don't have the fear of God, who have not been exposed to the word of God, like, you know, Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. If they know that, suicide is a devastating thing to the family, to the community.
It leaves a lot of pain.
Yeah. If they know this, they will not attempt. They won't even think about it. So, in fact, I'm so surprised, even those that are less than 16 in US, they are committing suicide. In fact, the statistics says that from 10 years to, the statistics is alarming.
It's alarming. Okay, so suicide is common basically amongst the young
adolescents,
okay,
the young
the
adults.
youths.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we're going to have a documentary on that shortly after when we go on break. Okay, let me come to Pastor Dave. Now, Pastor Dave, you did tell us earlier that you attempted suicide. Now, how were you able to restrain yourself from going ahead to committing the suicide?
Well, I never attempted. I had the thought. I had the depression to attempt it. But based on the fact that I had a very good foundation.
Okay, so that's withheld you?
Withheld me.
Okay, and now have you been close to someone? Have you been a pastor? Have you had counseling? Have you counseled anyone who nursed that thought within themselves? Or have you had friends while you were in school or in church?
Well, several times there are cases that are brought to us. Okay. Some close to suicide, some close to committing suicide, and some that are naturally suicidal. But what we do, we show them the way of the Lord. Because even a man that has a problem of anger can be controlled. The Bible says anger dwells in the bosom of fools. So if you have Christ in you, you have no reason to commit suicide. We make them understand that Jesus carries their burden. That's why he says, come unto me all ye that labor, because he knows that people will be carrying burdens. People will be having problems that will weigh them down.
So God, the solution is in God.
Yes.
The solution is in Christ.
Yes.
Okay, now, Reverend Mrs. Mokweden, let's come back. What are some of the signals of suicide?
Well, you find that the person involves in risky behaviors. Risky behavior. You see them driving anyhow.
Okay. They're hot-tempered.
Yes, they are withdrawn.
Okay.
They feel that they start complaining. They start talking about suicide. Find them mentioning suicide. Oh, I think if I just die now.
Okay, so it's a preempted, it has always been, they keep talking. It's not something they just immediately consider and then they do it.
No. First of all, they have the thoughts of suicide.
Okay.
So that thought degenerates into suicidal attempts before they actually commit the suicide. So, but when you see somebody just talking about, oh, I'm tired of this life. Oh, I am depressed. I am angry, you know, and the person is withdrawn. The person is not, the personality changes. The dressing, the way the person dresses becomes either outrageous or the person looks unkempt. Those are some of the signals. Verbally, you can hear them talk. Physically, their appearances changes. And they are withdrawn from people.
Okay, then some other behavior, can you, some of the behavior, addition to what Reverend Mrs. Imokoda just said?
Well, she has said it all.
She talked about some of the symptoms. Some of these people are withdrawn. Some of them are into alcohol.
Yes,
and lose interest.
Rejected. They give up on life. That they have nothing to benefit in life anymore. There is no reason for them to live. So even whatever they do before committing suicide, they don't think of the repercussion anymore because they know one day, because the thought is within them.
It's frustration.
Yes.
So frustration leads to depression, and depression leads to suicidal thought.
It's not properly controlled. Depression can be controlled before getting to suicide. It can be controlled. It can be tamed.
So you also can divorce also have another way of leading to.
It's a very, it's one of the issues, you know, that can lead to suicide. Say for instance, somebody you love so much, and the person comes into marriage, and you begin to see the other side of the person, not cooperating.
And then you're wondering, this is not the person that I married.
This is not the person. Especially if the person abuses you verbally, physically, and financially. You understand? So, and for instance, if the person doesn't have kids also, those are some of the factors during marriage that can lead to suicide.
Have you had any close case?
Well, I haven't, but I've read about suicide. I've heard about youths committing suicide. I've heard of people committing suicide, but I have never seen.
Well, a very close friend of mine committed suicide. So we were wondering, this particularly was one of the reasons why I had to go into research to do this. Now we're wondering, because she had everything going on well for her, but somehow along the line, I'm sure something happened. And then she contemplated and eventually carried out the act. She was so dear to us, but we wish she could just sit down. We wish she never did it because of the pains that she left behind. And then the children, the lovely family she also left behind. Now remember, if you're just joining us, the program is Breaking the Odds, and I've been talking with Reverend Mrs. Mercy Mokwade as well as Pastor Dave. Well, we've been looking at the issue of suicide. As we're discussing, my heart, I'm gradually getting emotional because, you know, when you hear of this kind of situation, you wonder why. You know, you ask yourself, why would someone go to the extent of taking their lives? They've given definition of suicide, of course, and also definition of life. And then if you're watching this program and probably you're depressed, you're easily angered, and then you think that life is actually not going the way you want to, rather than think of committing suicide, we are here to talk to you. We have a counselor, Reverend Mrs. Mercy Mokwade is a counselor. We also have Pastor Dave here, who is also going to talk to you. So we do not want you to resort to fate. Remember that there is a better life in midst of that trial. Things will surely turn out for good someday. So don't go away. We'll be right back after this short documentary with Osaro on the Street. We'll see you later.
everyone, I'm Osara Ide here and you're watching Breaking the Odds. Like you already know, we're talking about suicide. So why don't you join me on the street and let's find out people's view and people's opinion on what suicide is. Have you ever heard of the word suicide?
Yeah,
Okay, so what is suicide to you?
I think suicide is when someone decides to maybe end his or her life, maybe due to depression and maybe some other problem and all that. So I think that's what I understand by suicide.
So what do you think is the reason for suicide?
I think maybe too much pressure on, I don't know, financial problems too and all that. So I don't really know.
So do you think suicide is the best option to overcome such problems?
No.
Have you ever heard of the word suicide?
Yes, like I've heard about suicide so many times.
So what is suicide to you?
To me, really, suicide, there are a lot of our youth these days committing suicide, maybe because of the circumstances they find themselves. So there are a lot of things that leads to suicide. Like the society of today, when it comes to our youth, out of frustration, they go in for suicide. But I don't think that's the solution. Some of them complain because there is no job. That's the reason for suicide. A lot of people, they are jobless, especially our youth. They are frustrated. That is just the reason for the suicide. Then the hardship, let's say the hardship in the society today, that's what leads to suicide. Even among the married ones, those where a situation where a husband will just overnight leave the house for the wife because of the kids, because things are really bad. So that is some of the things. I think there are a lot of factors that lead to suicide.
So have you ever attempted suicide, or do you know anyone who has had such thoughts?
I've done that. It was frustration because of marriage that led me to that. I tried it, but it was just that luck was on my side. I was rushed to the hospital and I made it.
Okay, ma. So what do you think? Do you think suicide is the best option to overcome hardship or problems?
It's not. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not. There are other options. That's one thing, is that if there's somebody there to counsel you, to talk to you on how to go about it. And I think we should have a lot of hospices now where we have counselors that can handle situations like that. Yes, that's exactly what we need in this nation, because even the churches can get themselves involved by having, it's not only by having churches, you have a kind of office that there are people there that are counselors, ministers who can lead people in the right path. Suicide is not the solution to any situation.
Have you ever heard of the word suicide?
Yeah, suicide. I've heard about suicide.
Okay, so what do you think suicide means?
Suicide is someone trying to take his own life. When someone just decides to take his own life, that is what we call suicide.
Have you ever attempted suicide, or do you know anybody who has attempted suicide?
I know of some. I've ever heard of some. Like Boko Haram now, they take their life because of their religious things. So they go around and use the bomb on themselves to kill some other people.
So you personally, have you ever attempted it or had the thought of committing suicide?
I can't have that kind of thought because I have Christ in me. Because Christ is everything to me.
What do you think is the cause of suicide?
The cause of suicide is frustration. And number one is frustration. Number two is hopelessness. And number three is depression. So once those three things come together, it can lead to suicide.
So do you think suicide is the best result to overcome depression and frustration and hopelessness?
Suicide is not the best. To overcome that suicide, you need to have Christ in you. So when you become born again and the joy of the Lord fills your heart, so you can overcome all those evil thoughts, and you can know that the grace of the Lord will never allow you to commit out.
Hello sir, how is business today?
We thank God, by the grace of God, business is moving.
Have you ever heard of the word suicide?
Yes,
So what do you think suicide is?
suicide is when someone tries to kill himself, or when someone wants to kill himself, he or herself. That's suicide.
Okay, that's good. Have you ever committed suicide or attempted to commit suicide?
No. I've never committed suicide. I've never attempted. Yes, I've never attempted it.
Okay, and you do not know anybody who has probably attempted suicide or something?
No. I've not even seen it. I used to watch it in the movies, but I've not seen it happen live. I don't know anybody that have.
So what do you think is the major reason for people that attempt suicide?
So many reasons. For example, when someone is frustrated or when there is disaster, as in it's tragic, when something bad happens and you just can't take it any longer, you can't bear it. Some people, they will just conclude that let me just kill myself, and that's the last option. Let me just end it all. Understand? But it's not advisable anyway. It's not good.
Okay, I want to welcome you back. This is Breaking the Odds with Margaret Kwesi-Guma, reaching you all the way from Benin City, Nigeria. We've been looking at the issue of suicide, and of course, we've been looking at some of the signals of suicide. And then we're asking the question, why would someone go so far to take their own lives? And we had a guest, Pastor Dave, who said that life doesn't belong to you, life belongs to God. And as such, you do not have the right to take your life. And also we have a midwife, a psychologist, a counselor, and also a nurse, Reverend Mrs. Imokweden. She actually did give us the definition of suicide and of course the importance of why many people need to check signals of suicide. We're going to be doing justice to that. So if you're just joining us, the program, like I said, again, is Breaking the Odds. I'm still with Reverend Mrs. Imokweden. Ma, it's so nice still having you on board, and of course to Pastor Dave. Now, Pastor Dave, let me come to you. Now let's look at some of the factors too still responsible for suicide. Let's look at childhood abuse cases. Reverend Mrs. Imokweden was saying that suicide is common among teens, amongst children. Can child abuse, sexual abuse also be responsible for someone to take his or her life?
Well, it's one of the factors. And most people have been abused sexually, but they were still able to control it.
Now you're talking about control. It's easy for you to talk about control because you probably, had, like you said before, you had a good foundation. Yes. So the day you attempted suicide, you immediately just pushed it out because you had, taking someone, just like what Reverend Mrs. Imokweden said, someone from a broken home who doesn't have that well brought up foundation.
That's why I started from there. Okay. There is something we call misinformation.
About?
That's why the scripture says, train up a child in the way he should grow, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Okay. A child that has the right foundation, that is being taught from foundation, from childhood,
and taught the importance of life,
will not in any condition, any situation, want to take his life. He or she won't even want to think about it. Rather, when there is depression, he looks for somebody to cry on his shoulder.
But we've had even pastors. Suicide also revolves in the church because we've had situations where men of God, renowned men of God, take their own lives. Are you telling me that these didn't have foundation, haven't been pastoring for over many years?
That's a different
And
case.
then we also had the case of Ken Jones, who led his entire members to commit suicide. Yes. So I think our mama is going to talk on that.
Yes. In fact, I read in a book, according to Erwin, 1993. He stated that, and I quote, suicide conveys the reproaches and revenge of a pampered individual who expects too much of life and is easily disappointed.
Wow. That's a big one. Expatiate on that.
See, he said it conveys the reproaches and revenge.
So it could be used as a tool for revenge, for not getting what you want, for being disappointed. Yes. Okay, we have relationship case. A boy and a girl dating, and then one probably is cheating on the other. And then the next thing, the next thing, to get back, we have children getting back at their parents for not providing one or two things that they want.
Because they expect too much of life.
Okay. They got less.
All right.
So, and they were disappointed. You understand?
Yeah,
So-
you're watching the program, you're expecting so much from life, and probably life isn't actually giving you what you want. Now hear this and hear it clearly. Back to you, Reverend Mrs. Mokwede. Expatiate more on that.
Okay, you know, most families, they raise their children up, giving them everything they need.
And suddenly something happens.
And, you know, suddenly, for instance, they are used to getting whatever they want. Okay. Oh, mommy give me this, mommy give me this, daddy give me this. And they are given to them. And all of a sudden, you find that maybe something happens to the father or the mother, and is not able to provide such a thing. The next thing they do is to contemplate suicide.
Oof.
So it is good to train your children to know that life is not so easy like that.
Okay.
There are ups and downs in life. When we were young, we used to sing, "It's not an easy road. There are trials and troubles. How many are the dangers we meet?" You know, when I was in school,
Back in the days.
in secondary school, they used to teach us that song. So the thing is that
they used to teach you that song in school.
Yes.
But these days, such songs are no longer sung.
No, they are not
Or
sung.
sang.
In fact, the educational system or the socialization process of today have deranged to something else. So
we're going to look at actually, so maybe it's in our subsequent edition, we're going to be looking at the standard of our educational system and how has it impacted our young generation. Then we're going to also look at how it was back in the days, educational standard back in the days, and now. So back again to our topic of today, suicide. So you're talking about children or probably families getting what they used to get and then not having that again as one of the factors. And then we also look at some of the historical factors. Perhaps it runs in the family. And then we had a situation where someone said he wasn't going to get married to this girl again. And I got wind that suicide runs in his family. So Reverend Mrs. Mokwede, you are a nurse and of course a psychologist. So tell us, how do we prevent or stem the issue of suicide? Pastor Dave, you're also going to talk on that too. Well, let's hear from.
I think those around, those that have suicidal tendencies,
how can they be helped?
They should have knowledge of the risk factors.
But do you think they don't consider the risk factor before they go ahead to embark?
No, what I mean is the people surrounding those that are prone to suicide, they should be observant to note, who has the risk factors.
So Pastor Dave, from you think that how do we prevent this kind of occurrence?
Well, I see suicide as a thing of the heart. It's a thing of the heart, conclusion from the heart.
Okay.
A man that wants to commit suicide will not tell you, I want to commit suicide. He will conclude and do it before you know.
But we have cases where some people come in before the media and say they want to commit suicide. They're tired of life. We've seen the media even screenshot some of these cases.
When they are ready,
The thing is that, sorry,
when they are ready, they will not tell it because one way or the other stop them. Okay. A man that has made up his mind or a child that has made up his mind to commit suicide will go ahead and we do it before anybody will be able to stop them. Okay,
Ma, you were going to...
Yes. Why? Because it's a process. Okay. The thought comes in. Yeah. Like we have been told that suicide, you have the thought first. Yeah. And your thought motivates your behavior.
Okay.
You understand?
Your thought motivates your behavior.
The Bible says, as a man thinketh, so he is. You understand? So you find when somebody is behaving abnormally from the usual behavior, you shall stop suspecting. Like I mentioned, the personality of that person changes.
Okay.
You understand? The person can be obsessed, doing one thing over and over again. and not trying to associate with the friends he used to associate with. Okay. Then talking, like I said, verbally, what the person speaks. Then, you know, withdraw from people. Those are signals that this person is having, you know, in thoughts of suicide.
Okay, now if you're a mother, a father, whoever you are watching this program, these are some of the signs that you have just been told to watch out for. You know, we also have cases of some children who are very isolated. I remember I saw a movie, this child was so isolated from the parents, and then the parents concluded by saying, oh, this is how the child is. Is that enough? When you see a child, you know that this child was involved in a very terrible act. Then eventually, the child was involved in drug and involved in alcohol. And eventually, one day, the child took her life. And then when the parents were being interviewed, the father and the mother said they never saw it coming. So how would I tell? In spite of all of this, there are some signals that are not obvious at all. So how do I diagnose?
The thing is this, research has shown that, first of all, the thought must be there, and suicide does not occur overnight, except the parents are not observant.
But most times this act is being committed before we even realize. Is it that we are too busy or too engrossed doing some other things, and we tend to give less attention to some important things that we are supposed to?
That may be a point, because particularly in our society, Nigeria, we are so busy. We are so
And even the challenges in the country alone is enough to get one mad. And then even attempt suicide, don't you think so?
Yes. For instance, now, you have dropouts from school.
Then we have graduates, no job.
Graduates, no job.
Certainly.
No, financial difficulty. They can't even eat 3 square meals a day. You know, those are some of the things. And again, we don't have counseling facilities where people can run to.
In the nation today.
Yeah.
And, you know, people just go to anybody. You think anybody can? There are professionals who have counseled people, who are counseling, who have been trained in the use of therapies to help these children that are having problems. But
including
many
families.
of our, particularly in Nigeria here, outside this country, they have institutions that are put in place for counseling.
But I thought that I think there was a report that showed that suicide is more replete or rampant amongst those developed, wealthy class of people in the society.
Well,
looking at the rich and looking at the poor and average.
The thing is that they said,
and even in globalized areas,
suicide is not common among the affluents. That's one thing. It's not common.
Okay.
Because it's commoner among the low class and the middle class groups.
Okay.
You understand?
All right.
It's commoner.
Well, our documentary will show that.
Yes. And again, there is no statistics, no ready statistics. It's only now that maybe somebody has done a research in Nigeria that you find people coming out to report about suicide. In our country here, it is regarded as a taboo.
You don't mean it.
Before
now?
Yes. It is regarded as a taboo if a family member commits suicide.
But really, Pastor Evangelist Dave, it's really alarming, really. Because in Nigeria, this was alien. But now, today in our country, you just hear it at every quarter. So it's actually surprising. Like you said, Ma, yes, it is really, really alarming to hear because it was forbidden. I know we did, when we were growing up, we watched some of these movies, they say you're an outcast. When the person, whoever commits suicide is sin, when the body is seen, they say you're an outcast.
Even in church.
Okay.
You know, when somebody commits suicide in those days in church, they will not give that person a befitting burial.
You don't mean it?
Yes.
Okay, so now, Evangelist David, I did mention about the cases of even spiritual leaders who have taken their lives. What could have gone wrong?
Well, there is a case of losing hope or trust in the Lord.
In the Lord.
Yes, in their God.
Okay.
Yeah, not believing that the situation they find themselves, that they can come out of it.
Okay, so
They lost hope in God. They lost their faith, their trust in the Lord. And because of that, they felt ending it on this earth would be better. Not knowing fully well that where they are heading might be more risky, getting to that place in such conditions.
But where they don't know, how would they think about where they are going to?
Then why would they be pastors and Christians not believing that there is hope after death?
Then,
it's impossible. I don't know why a man will claim to be a pastor when he does not have hope after death.
okay.
That is the power of Christianity.
So at the point that they got to taking their life, was it that they lost sight of that hope after death?
Yes, they lost hope in God.
Okay.
They did not see that God would be able to save them from that situation anymore.
Then
They just gave up on God.
that's a serious one.
And
Reverend,
that was what happened in the case of Judas Iscariot in the Bible.
okay.
After selling his master, he just felt it's already over. I have done the worst, so let me just die. And the case of Ahithophel in the Bible, when he betrayed David, when he gave the wrong counsel to kill David, and the thing bounced back. Absalom the plans could not work, and he killed himself. When he noticed that the plans to kill David did not work, the plot, he decided to take his life, knowing fully well that David will be out for him. So he quickly took his life. But it will be better you just wait, face the consequence. It is better someone takes your life than you taking your life.
Oh, from you, Reverend Mrs. Mokwede.
Well, the Bible says in Philippians 4:8, whatsoever is true, whatsoever is lovely, whatsoever is of good report, if there be virtue, if there be praise, if there be honor, all those things, think on those
them.
things.
Yes.
You understand? A man of God who has been called to pastor a church, if the person is truly filled with the Holy Spirit, it will be difficult because you are called to preach the good news to people, to deliver them, to tell them that Christ has delivered you. And you go and kill yourself. And then I feel that there must be something wrong somewhere. But again, if you talk about the theories they've been talking on suicide, you discover that mental disorders can be responsible for suicide.
Okay.
So if somebody does not really know that he or she is suffering from mental disorder and is a pastor, you find that person can commit suicide.
I don't understand. Please, you said some people may not even know that they are suffering from mental disorder.
Yes.
And as such, some of these could be a risk factor for suicide.
Yes.
You don't mean it. So you mean there are some people walking on the street mentally deranged or having mental disorder but unknown to them?
Yes.
How can you help such people?
Such persons...
Or how can they get help?
Such persons, they can't help themselves. So it is the community, the relations, the nation that can help such... In fact, for mental cases, medication and treatment should be free.
But when someone doesn't know that he or she has a case, how do you think the person could access medical help?
That's what I'm saying. I said the relations, the nation, the community.
We live in a society where everybody seems to mind their own business. That's the world we're living in. So I'm sure that's even one of the reasons why we're having some of these cases of suicide, because of modernization or civilization or globalization that has actually crept into our society and then disconnected our communal kind of life, which we used to enjoy back in the days. I think that life is gone. So how does a nation like ours that have so embraced modernization, that have so embraced civilization, now be able to help such situation?
Well, it is not only Nigeria that is have modern all these things. the developed countries,
You also experience.
they also have suicide. Their members,
Which is also very high.
Which is high. So they have put in place institutions
Okay. To help
Even you
victims
call
of
somebody who is a counselor, somebody who is a psychiatrist, somebody who is not really a psychiatrist but has knowledge about therapies for those that have all these challenges.
Yeah.
So they just easily call them, and they know there are so many lines that will be answering.
All right,
But
so
we don't have it.
all right, you just heard that. Now, there are a lot of cases around us. And some person, I just got to know now that some persons are having mental issues, but unknown to them. And what she's saying right now is that our society needs to put in infrastructures, measures to help stem suicidal cases. And of course, the time is now, and we need to come out. Also, individuals around, look around you. There are some cases around you, but sometimes we pretend not to see these cases. These people need help. And they also reveal some of the signals or some of the behavioral factors that are responsible for suicidal cases. And of course, they're saying that, look at, you need help. If you have someone who easily gets angry, someone who is into alcohol abuse, someone who is into depressed, someone who is depressed, someone who suddenly begins to isolate his or herself from people, you know that such person needs some help. Please don't be quiet. And then if you need to talk to us, we have counselors standing by to talk to you and help you get out of that situation. The situation is not just akin to you. I mean, all around the world, life itself is highly challenging.
Yeah.
You're not the only one going through whatever issue that you're going through. Now, taking your life is not going to solve the problem. As a matter of fact, taking your life, you're actually opening another chapter for others who are going to be thinking of how much you love you, but you're not there to embrace, you're not there for them to, share laughter with, So please, help us to help you. Come and let us talk. However, we're gradually coming to the climax of this edition, but before we go, let me come to Pastor Dave. Pastor Dave, what's your counsel to that boy, to that girl, that man, that woman who is in an abusive relationship, doesn't know what to do, and is just written that suicide note and is just about to end his or her life? What's your counsel to that person watching this program right now?
I will always give you a counsel from my own understanding, which is the scriptures. I will say that you should draw near to the Lord. He has a solution to every problem. That thing you carry so much as a burden that causes depression, it can't be taken away. I will advise that when you know that there is judgment after death, when you already understand that there is a life after death and there is an eternity of suffering after death, you will have to be patient with God, cling to Him. That problem that is causing depression, that will make you to take your own life, can be solved.
Exactly.
Can be solved.
So that
Jesus is alive.
That situation can be resolved.
Yeah.
Now, do you know that sometimes some situations actually are there to just help you to get mature, not to destroy you, but to help you to grow in God? As a matter of fact, nothing good comes easily.
Yeah. So
taking your life is not the solution for that problem. Now, let me come to Reverend Mrs. Imokwede. Before you give your final counsel as a psychologist and as a counselor, as a midwife and as a nurse, now what are some of these materials, weapons that suicidal victims use in committing suicide?
Well, they use firearms. They can just shoot themselves.
Wow.
Some of them get ropes and they hang themselves. Pesticides. like all
The
those
sniper I mentioned.
sniper.
And I think the federal government has just banned that, the sale of that. But funny enough, we have the sniper you talked about. We use it for mosquitoes in the house. And all of a sudden, they converted it into a chemical for ending their lives.
I've even seen a case where a man ran into a moving trailer. So any dangerous...
And we also heard of those who jump into the lagoon.
Yeah, so it's... what I see there is help the person involved, because a man that wants to commit suicide right here will have something to do with it.
The thing is that what they advocate
So it's not just enough to take those things away from
you can
the reach of that
things.
person.
You know, you know those that hang, they have this rope.
Okay.
Some use, and you can find these sharp objects too, like razor blade. They look for, any of the arteries that are really exposed, and they cut themselves.
Wow.
And they bleed.
Wow.
So there are so many, but these are the major ones.
Okay.
That
are within the reach of suicide
victims.
Okay, now what's your counsel as a counselor and a psychologist? Frankly, now we have someone who is just about to take his or her life watching the program right now. I want you to please speak to them right now, and then what word will you say to them at this moment?
Well, I feel that...
Particularly looking at families, divorce cases, I want you to speak to families.
I feel that families should take responsibilities of training their children in the fear of God. For instance, if you don't train your children pertaining the things of God, that there is life after, and that here there is no continuity, that one day all of us will die. You find that one that doesn't know may just want to take their life. And secondly, parents that are wealthy should not over-pamper their children. Everything they want, you just give them. Yeah. By the time they don't have those things, you find that they become depressed. And they will want to do funny things.
Yeah.
And you find that this society should put in place institutions where these people can easily go for help. Suicide should be taught in schools.
Okay, yeah, because these things are not taught in schools at all. Even the counseling department in some schools are no longer existing, particularly looking at the public schools. Some of them are no longer existing.
So it's and whoever is having those risky behaviors around you, be your brother's keeper.
Don't just be quiet.
Don't just be quiet, because your talking may just save that life.
Exactly, yeah.
So those are the...
Whoa. It's actually been a wonderful time on the program. Reverend Mrs. Imokwede, I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And also Evangelist David, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Well, to the crew who have been here, Eagles TV crew, I really want to appreciate you guys. Shegun and Mike, you guys are wonderful. And then, of course, my co-presenter, Osaro, and Ade, you guys have actually been doing wonderfully well. Ade is in charge of photography, okay? And of course, Osaro is usually on the street. Thank you so, so much, guys. Without you guys, we'll not be here. Thanks to you who have watched the program from the beginning to the end. Well, and for all those who are actually nursing the idea of taking their lives, remember we've said on the show that the life doesn't belong to you, according to Evangelist David, that life belongs to God. And if you realize that the life is important, you will not take your life, and you will not take somebody else's life. And you also heard from Reverend Mrs. Imokwede. For those around us, please be mindful, be concerned, and also watch out for such signals. You could help that life that is about to be ended. Remember, We have to be one another's keeper. Be your brother's keeper. And we at Eagles TV, we are available to take your calls. We are available to read your messages. Come talk to us. I assure you that our counselor, Reverend Mrs. Imokwede, will be on ground to talk to you. All our social media platforms are there for you to reach us. Thank you so much. It's actually been a wonderful time being with you on the program, Breaking the Odds. And of course, I also want to let you know that Breaking the Odds, one of your #1 life's most impactful, interactive, informative, and exciting program, is open for sponsorship. So we're calling on you, whatever you're doing, this is a platform to get your organization, to get your product known. Come and partner with us. You can also advertise your beautiful product on our show. Just get in touch with us on the numbers on your screen or reach us on any of our social media platform, and we'll be glad that you will. And of course, I'm telling you, you will not regret partnering or sponsoring this program. The program is open for sponsorship. Once again, thank you for watching. Let's do this again. We are reaching you all the way from Benin City, Nigeria. So you can sponsor the program from anywhere you are. Bye for now. Hello people, this is Margaret Kwisiguma reaching you all the way from Benin City, Nigeria. Woo, I'm your host on the program, Breaking the Odds. It's an interactive, informative, and exciting program where we're going to be talking with real people, real issues, discussing and profiling real solutions to life's issue, where we're going to be talking with a lot of wonderful personalities from every sphere of life on the show, Breaking the Odds. I just want you to make a time with us, keep the date. It comes your way from Eagles TV here in Benin City, Nigeria, every Sunday by 6 p.m. Of course, you can reach us on any of our social media platforms if you want to be part of the show, and of course, you also want to make your comments. Well, the program also is open for sponsorship and partnership. Wherever you're going to be watching the program from across the world, we are saying here on Eagles TV, live with Margaret Kwisiguma, reaching on Breaking the Odds, that this program is in their need of sponsor. Come be part of us, be our partner, be our sponsor, advertise a lovely program on the show, Breaking the Odds. Don't forget, I did say that the program is focusing on real people, real issues, discussing real solutions. With real me, Margaret Kwisiguma, your host on the show. And of course, I'm also going to be having a wonderful team, Ade and Osara and the Eagles TV crew. So don't miss out on this. Every Sunday, reaching you live from Nigeria. Keep the date, it's by 6 p.m. Love you so much, and I look forward to hooking up with you. Have a good day.